Your name is James Bryce, and you're in a hurry. You didn't really have to stop for that sign. There wasn't a policeman in sight, and no cars coming the other way. But you did stop, almost mechanically, without thinking. Why? It began a long time ago, James Bryce, when you looked like this. Things happened to you then, a whole series of things that told you the same story. Little incidents like this one.
Jimmy, look who's come to play with you.
Hi.
Well, aren't you glad to see Henry? Get up and say hello.
Henry, go play with Jimmy while Mommy's gone.
They'll be okay, Helen.
Well, thanks a lot, Jean.
That's new, isn't it? Let me play with it. I want to keep it.
Boy, stop that. What's the matter with you?
He took my fire engine. He won't let me play with it.
That's very naughty, Jimmy. It's not your fire engine, it's Henry's.
I want it.
It's not yours. You can't have it unless Henry gives it to you.
Make him give it to me.
No, it belongs to Henry. You go play with your truck. That belongs to you.
I don't want it.
Well, don't play with anything then, but behave yourself. I'm ashamed of you.
I hate the soap truck. It's no good.
You're Jimmy Bryce, and you're angry. You wanted something, and somebody said no, just because it belonged to someone else. And so, now you're being scolded. Too bad. If only you weren't a human being. If you were a monkey, for example, this problem would never come up. If you wanted something, you'd take it, and may the best monkey win. No mother monkey around to say, naughty, or you know better, or I'm surprised at you. Or if you'd been born a social insect, like a bee, there'd be no problem either. The social behavior of a bee is largely fixed by heredity and instinct. No moral problems, no trouble, no rebels, no criminals, no nonconformists in a beehive. But back here in human society, there are problems. Social behavior has to be learned, usually the hard way. The moral rules that govern human society are transmitted to the young through speech and writing. Animal society, when it exists, is founded on instinct, physical differences, and imitation. These play a part in developing human society too, but words and other symbolic means of communication are more important. And parents are not the only teachers of moral norms. The group to which a human being belongs from his very earliest years is also responsible for some of his social education. You're Jimmy Bryce, and you're 5 years old now. Like it or not, you've become a part of a social group. Today, James Bryce doesn't even remember an incident like this one, and it was one of many. It was just one of those days, those bad days. Life in the kindergarten was pretty dull. Finger painting seemed like sissy stuff. How about a little action? You're feeling pretty strong this morning. Anybody want to fight? There, that ought to start something. Same old story. Grown-ups always spoil the fun. All the old words, too. Be a good boy. Ashamed of you. How would you like it if somebody did that to you? But Jimmy's still looking for trouble. And if at first you don't succeed, well... Words haven't worked very well on Jimmy, and so now the teacher tries enforcing moral norms, punishment by separating him from the group. Jimmy is pretending that he doesn't care, but he's looking to the group for their reaction. Most of all, he wants attention, but he's not getting it now. The other children have become suddenly indifferent, and Jimmy is disappointed. At recess time, Jimmy's formal punishment was ended, but then the children took over. They didn't like his bullying behavior, and they let him know it. They applied one form of social sanction against him, exclusion. Exclusion, or withdrawal, is an informal kind of punishment used especially by children and adolescents, but fear of it continues to exercise a restraint throughout adult life. Another kind of sanction is force, and Jimmy has gotten so far out of hand now that the teacher applies it. She tells him that the other children don't like him right now, but they will if only he'll behave a little better. But by the time Mrs. Bryce came to get Jimmy after school that afternoon, some of his cockiness had returned. As a result, he is about to have another sanction applied to him by his group, ridicule, which in this case takes the form of mimicking his strut. In some situations, ridicule is highly effective. Like withdrawal or exclusion, it is a sanction ordinarily applied by children and adolescents, but the threat of it continues to operate in adult behavior. The fear of both exclusion and ridicule, learned in childhood, remains a powerful motivation for adhering to moral norms in later life. Fortunately, the learning of moral norms is not always an unpleasant experience, as Jimmy learned at recess a few days later. Jimmy didn't know it at the time, but he was beginning to learn something essential to the whole basis of order in human society. A member of society must cooperate in order to participate, give in order to get. Jimmy didn't learn all the rules from this one experience. Many incidents of the same kind were needed for his social education. For example, not long afterward, there was that business about the tricycle.
Sure. I just want you to remember one thing, Jimmy. I don't want you ever to cross a street. Not any street. Understand?
It's dangerous because of the automobile, so you mind what Daddy says.
But a few days later, temptation confronted Jimmy. One afternoon, he and his friend Betty were racing each other on their tricycles. The forbidden territory across the street suddenly seemed very inviting. Over there, a whole world of excitement lay waiting. The call of adventure proved stronger than the rules laid down by Jimmy's father. But Jimmy's father came home from work early that afternoon, and the culprit was caught red-handed. Betty feels highly virtuous as she sees Mr. Bryce reprimanding Jimmy for a misdeed that her own conscience had not let her commit. And so, once again, force is applied to Jimmy, and he is brought home. Once again, he listens while his father explains the danger of crossing the street. The next day, Jimmy received his punishment. He was not allowed to use his tricycle and play with the other children. Jimmy is learning that if he breaks the rules, he gets punished. And punishment is an important factor in moral education in childhood. However, in adult life, the educational aspect of punishment is relatively unimportant. Its main purpose is not to reform the criminal. Its real value is to reaffirm the moral standard for everyone else. When Jimmy's punishment was over and he was allowed to ride his tricycle again, temptation presented itself once more. Again, the life of forbidden joy calls to him. And he would probably get away with it this time. Not a grown-up in sight. Why not? Why not? Because Jimmy has begun to grow a conscience, and it is beginning to take over in making decisions between right and wrong. It will continue to operate, often unconsciously, throughout his life. You're James Bryce now. Not Jimmy, aged 5, and most of the time you stay within the moral norms of your society. Your conscience is no longer just a barrier. Now it's a part of your self-expression, relating itself to the various roles you play in your society. The roles of husband and father demand that you provide for your family. The role of businessman demands that you get to work on time. And the roles of friend and neighbor require you to be courteous, even when you're in a hurry. You're James Bryce, a social being at long last, because your parents, teachers, and group did a good job of socialization. Without this socialization, and without the sanctions used to achieve it, there would be no basis for moral order in human society.